Hey you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another book tag, and that is the end of the decade book tag. My friend Clem over at Villain Quest recently made this tag like a couple weeks ago, and I've been really excited to do it, so I will leave their original video down below along with all the questions so you guys can go ahead and figure out if you guys want to enjoy, do this tag or not. I'm also going to tag two other people to do this video because I am very bad at tagging people, sort of, more or less, so yeah, but I'm going to be tagging Allie from Allie Gray's Story. I will leave her channel link down below. And then I will also be tagging Andrea from Andrea Reads, and I will leave her channel down below as well. Oh, and also basically everyone else in the group Twitter chat, in case you guys haven't done it but want to but are procrastinating like I am, you tagged, bruh. So they're all tagged, and now we're going to get on with the video. So there are a total of 10 questions, and I have answered them all, thankfully. I prepped my answers this time. So we're just going to get into it. So the first question is favorite book or series of the decade. And really this book is going to be double dipping, but no one should be surprised. And that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which is going to be my favorite book of the decade. I read this last year and I cannot stop talking about it. It's essentially a retelling of the Achilles myth where we see Achilles through the eyes of Patroclus. Fuck me up the asshole. Patroclus. Patroclus. It's not patronize. I know how to pronounce that. There we go. Patroclus. Thank you. Patroclus. Essentially, we're chronicling all of Achilles' life from the minute they met Patroclus onto adulthood, well into the Trojan War, and we see it through Patroclus' eyes. This is a very heartbreaking book. I cry thinking about it. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and I'll never probably stop talking about it, ever. So it's not a surprise that this is on this list. And y'all also can't get mad at me for putting this on this list because this is a review of the favorite books I've read throughout the decades. So I don't have a choice. Really, there's no choice that I have to put this on this list. And then for the favorite series aspect, I'm going to go ahead and go with The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. I could have easily done The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare, but really I'm going to say this is my favorite series of the decade because it introduced me to this world of Shadowhunters, this way of story writing that Cassie has, and it's just on my favorite list, and I absolutely adore Jace, and I would die for him, and I will, yeah, I'm just gonna die for him. That's really all I can say. Question number 2 is a book that has impacted your reading the most, and I'm gonna go with The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I recently reread this for Queer Lit Readathon, and I read this last year, last year, just for kicks and giggles. Basically what The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about follows Monique Grant, who was asked to write an exposition on an article basically on Evelyn Hugo, who has been a recluse from Hollywood for how many ever years. She's now 70 and is slowly dying. And she has now opened up her life and is only going to allow Monique to write about her life as she starts off in Hollywood, going all the way throughout her time in Hollywood and her 7 husbands. I think this book has impacted my reading the most because I never really read a lot of, I do read historical fiction a fair amount, as much as I can really, but I never really found a love for them. I would dabble in there here and there, but The Seven Husbands really reignited the fact that I love historical fiction and makes me realize that I really love, on top of just the 1920s aesthetic, also the 1960s aesthetic with old Hollywood and all the hippy dippy stuff. I just love it, and I realize that I also really do enjoy the concept of having more inclusivity in historical fiction because I feel like there isn't enough, and it's a silent way of telling people that, hey, gay people didn't exist until now. I think that having this where we have a character outright say that she's bisexual and she's not going to change herself for that in historical fiction, in a romance nonetheless, is a very kind of it's an eye-opening thing for me where I realize that we have existed beyond the early 2000s, 1990s, we've just been really suffocated, and I think that people bringing more awareness by reminding people that, hey, people who were of the LGBT community had existed way before y'all started shoving us in the corner in the closet was a really good thing for me to see. and it makes me realize that I need to read more historical fiction with that aspect in there. I don't know if that made any kind of sense at all, but if it did, you're going to read the book and you're going to understand. Question number 3 is the book you recommend the most, and here's where we're double dipping, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Like I said, this is one of my favorite books of the decade. I just love the writing so much. I loved how heart-wrenching it was, and how I'm a big Greek myth slut, if you guys don't know. I need to read more retellings and more reimaginings of Greek mythology and Greek literature. If I could, I'd go back to school for classics and get my master's in that. Yeah, I just love this retelling, and I need Madeline Miller to come out with more. I think she'd do a really good Medusa. I've said this time and time again. I think Medusa's story is one that we need to hear more about. I also really enjoy, I think she'd also do a really good retelling of Hades and Persephone. I think that one would be really good. Or like Artemis at the beginning of her, like her figuring out that she wants to create like this own little troupe of hers that are just like girls who just don't want to be around men and don't want to marry men and want to run around the forest and hunt things and not be bothered by men. I think that would be a really good thing to see. So question number 4 is the prettiest book of the decade. Now, if y'all know me, y'all know that I cannot, under any circumstances, make a decision. So I made a pile of books that I will show you right now and some slight synopses of the stories. I'm also going to show them to you naked if that is an option for these books. So, 1 second. So the first book on this list, or this pile, that I cannot choose from is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nyan. This is inspired by, I believe, Chinese mythology. They're caste and they're all demons, and the bottom caste are called the paper caste when you have no demon in you at all. You're human. And the emperor chooses 8 girls, I believe, every year to be his concubines and like live life. And this time a 9th girl is chosen, and that is Lei, who was chosen for the gold of her eyes. Here now she has to traverse throughout this entire really dangerous kind of shitty situation of hers, while also falling in love with another paper girl. Now let's look at the gold foiling and the pink and the purple, and let's look at her without the cover. Like, I don't know if this concept of the book comes with everything else, like if there's a different thing, but this is what's on this cover, and it's absolutely gorgeous and I love it. And I don't remember what it is for exactly. I need to do a reread of the book to find out, but I love this cover. I love this book. I need to pick out the second book really soon. So the next book is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. This is the last book to the Mortal Instruments series, but not the overall Shadowhunters series. This fall, I can't really tell you guys anymore, because you guys know what the Shadowhunters are. You guys should know what the, like, I feel like people have read this so far, but I just love it because of like the whole like dichotomy here with Clary and her fiery hair, and then Sebastian Jonathan with his like wings and the sword, and it just looks great. And then what I didn't realize was that there's a poster here of like, there's Alec, which he looks really sad and I'm not a fan of. Then there's Izzy, then there's Jason. I'm pretty sure Clary and Simon are on the other side, but I don't want to remove the cover for it. So the next book is a book that I have recently read like last month, and that is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Really, all the covers for The Starless Sea are like impeccable, and I just want to collect them all like Pokemon. So this is a book about books. This follows Zachary as he stumbles into this authorless novel in his library and finds that it retells something of his past that no one else really knows about. Because of this, he ends up stumbling into this world where he now has to sit down and realize and like find out what this means. It's like a weird secret society, but also not, and it's really good. I have a reading vlog all about it if you guys want to read my sobbing thoughts on it. So, and here is what she looks like naked. I know that I really want to get the UK editions because they're different colors, but I don't know if I will be, like, I'm going to visit the UK this summer, so if those books are still available, I'm going to be buying one of them. But I don't know if I'll be able to take all 3 versions of me with me home, so it's a dilemma. And finally, the last book is another Erin Morgenstern book, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is the UK edition, I believe, or the Waterstones exclusive edition. It is blue, it is gorgeous, it has sprayed edges, which is my aesthetic, this navy blue. This follows basically a competition between 2 magicians in this circus that only appears every night with no warning and nowhere else. I love this cover. I initially thought this was going to be a leather-bound book because of how the texture is. I don't know if you guys can see it very well, but the texture of the book is a little bit more, it looks like it should be leather-bound, but it's not. And naked, it's pretty boring, but the end pages are like gorgeous, I think. So we have to lose somewhere to win something. Favorite author of the decade? I'm torn between two. I'm gonna go with Madeline Miller and Cassandra Clare. I think Cassandra Clare has really reignited. Like, I had a love for writing before then, but that was ignited by Twilight, and then I lost my way for a little bit, and Cassandra Clare reignited that with her series and has made me want to be a writer, be like her. There's that. And then Madeline Miller, as you guys know, I love Circe. I love The Song of Achilles, so really she's on this list because she's just freaking great. 6. A book or books that you want to read before the end of the decade. I'm gonna go with The Wicked King by Holly Black. I read The Cruel Prince when it first came out. But essentially, children were kidnapped because one of them was half Fae. They got to the Fae. Children grow up in the Fae. One of the kids wants to be a knight in the court and finds herself traversing through this place that she doesn't really know the politics of because she's been pretty sheltered despite being really bullied by kids. And she falls in love, or starts to fall for, the Cruel Prince. And this is the sequel. This is a book that I've been meaning to get to for a while now. It's on my December TBR, and I don't know if I have time to read it because I'm in the middle of Renegades? Renegades. And she's a little thick. So if I don't get to this by the end of 2019, she'll be one of the books that I start off with in 2020. Question 7 is a genre you hope to read more of. I want to read more high fantasy, like adult high fantasy. I always have issues with adult high fantasy because it's like very a male-dominated genre and I can only do so much. But we're seeing more women and more queer authors kind of break their way into that fold, so I'm going to start picking them up soon. I also want to read more sci-fi. I like sci-fi. I like the concept of sci-fi. I watch plenty of sci-fi shows and sci-fi like movies, but reading them, sometimes like sci-fi books seem really pretentious to me, so it's really difficult. But if you guys have any suggestions, leave those down below. I also want to read more thrillers and mysteries. I love me a good thriller and mystery, but I'm so finicky with them because I don't pull them out so often, so I always like go for like the ones that sound really cool and interesting. Number 8 is reading plans for the new decade, for the end of the decade. The only thing I wrote down was to cry about Renegades. I'm currently in the middle of reading Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I have cried like at least a couple times, like the first 2 pages, so it's a downhill spiral from here, and we'll see where it goes. Number 9 is reading plans for the new decade, and that is more classics. I love me classics, but I'm really finicky with them because like sometimes they're really hit or miss for me, so I just need to like find my tried and true and like dip my toes into them and then like just ride that wave and like find similar authors. I really want to reread Wuthering Heights like desperately because I've reread the books twice now. Didn't like them both times, but they were also meant for a class, and you can only enjoy so many classics when you're in a class setting, so maybe now, as an adult, like 4 years after the fact that I read it for a different class, I will enjoy it. And then also read more adult and new adult high fantasy. I want to get my book published within those 2 like subsections, I guess, or age groups, and I need to know where my book seems more at YA, like in terms of writing style, but there isn't a lot out there in new adult, which is the genre that I want to go for. So leave me books in the comments below of things that should be a new adult novel that went into young adult, or an adult novel that is queer and wonderful and not at all. We turned left, but then we got lost, so we turned right, and now we're still lost. And then 10 is habits you're leaving behind in 2020. Okay, so one of them is overwhelming myself with books. I love reading books. I borrow things from the library a lot. I do a lot of like audiobooks and like ebooks because my library at the present, I think, like the library closest to my house has a pretty small selection, and I don't want to like borrow the books and like have someone else not be able to pick it up since it is so small, so that's why I don't go there very often. But I do like to go on the online version and just do that. I also tend to lose things, and I'm a mood reader, so like not like a super hardcore mood reader, but if I'm not in the mood for a book I thought I was going to be in the mood for, I'm not going to read it. So like if I borrow a book and don't like read it right away, you know. And like sometimes all of my holds will come in on top of a very overwhelming and like thick TBR as it is. So like we just gotta figure out a balance of like things, and like I gotta do the math before I put books on hold, you know. Because I'll put a book on hold and be like, oh, that's 3 weeks later. I can get through these books, and then 3 weeks comes and I'm like in the middle of a book and that book's going out and like the timer's counting down being like, it's due in like 2 days, and you're like, well, F my L. My L's been F. And then the other one is to not forget about the books that I have bought that's on my TBR. I currently do not have a TBR cart. 2020, I'm going to be buying another bookshelf, and we're going to be scooting down that way. So I will have room for like this little guy here to be like my TBR situation, and like add other things in storage so I can like have more room elsewhere. But at present, I don't have a TBR cart. I don't know what books I need to read. I have recently made a Goodreads shelf where it's like books that I need to read that I own. So that's what making it a little easier, but still it's very like, if I don't have a visual, I'm gonna forget. But that is it for this tag. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely prefer end of the decade to end of the year book tag. Not because the decade is ending per se, and that's a big motivator, but also because it just makes more sense. Like end of the year book tag comes like everyone does it in like October or November, which makes no sense to me. So yeah, if you guys want to do this video, do it. I tag you even if I didn't physically tag you in the beginning. I will leave the links for the original video, the questions, the people who I've tagged. And yeah, until next time, I'll talk to you guys in the comments. If you guys do this video, English, leave the links to your videos down below. I'd love to watch it and see what your guys' answers are. But until next time, hit like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys everywhere else. And bye-bye.